We have Congressman Mike Kaufman. You would please, let's welcome Mike up here to tell us a little bit about what's going on in his campaign and the rest of the world.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And I know you just heard from Corey and some other folks, and I'm sure he talked about the Supreme Court decision that was very disappointing, very surprising, as well as the contempt of Congress vote that we had on Eric Holder. And so I think what I'd just like to do is open up to questions from you on any issues, and I'll certainly cover some things that I think are important if you don't have questions, but let me just see if you have any questions first on any issues. Yeah.
You've got a real background in the military. How do you feel the defense cuts that are going on now are going to affect our military staff?
Yeah. The question is what about the, obviously I do have a defense background, retired military, about combined 21 years between the Army Reserve, the Marine Corps, and the Marine Corps Reserve, and had 5 overseas deployments. The last 2 were the first Gulf War and the Iraq War. And so the question is that how do the current cuts affect us? And let me say first, I don't think that the President, as Commander-in-Chief, I don't think that there's a cut. He will defend any program to the death, unless it's the Department of Defense. And there's no cut deep enough that could make him happy. And I can tell you, and I quite frankly differ from some of my Republican colleagues on the House Armed Services Committee, I think we can make cuts to defense. I think it's too top-heavy. The Department of Defense is way too top-heavy. I'm opposed to nation-building operations. I think we can do things without invading, administering, and pacifying whole countries. There are other ways to accomplish our security objectives. I think that, there's a lot of things we can do. We can look at across the board and on the active duty forces and say what can be more effectively done on the Guard and Reserve. So I think there's a lot we can do to save money. But the sequester and the cuts from the sequester are just way too deep. And they cut in capability, particularly how this administration will do the cuts. And first of all, even without the sequester, what this administration wants to do is change our posture from the current doctrine of being able to conduct 2 simultaneous major military operations at the same time, down to 1, and a holding action in the other, as if our enemies are going to wait in line for us. And I think that's incredible. I think we can make the cuts, not deep enough not to the sequester, but we can certainly make cuts that don't compromise and no cut should compromise our national security. The one thing that the Constitution of the United States says is the Congress shall maintain a common defense. It doesn't say anything about all these other programs, but it does specify that we do that one thing. And let me just say, defense spending is 19% of all federal spending if we look at in the last fiscal year. If we look at mandatory spending or entitlement spending, it's 57%. 57%. There's analysis that I think in 25 years, if we continue on the current path where entitlement spending is projected to grow, the growth is that is in 25 years, the entire budget, based on current revenues, will be absorbed between Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and interest on the debt. And there will be no money for anything else, including defense. That's how, if you look at the trajectory of this country, that's where we're headed to. And it's a very dangerous position to be in. So we've got to make some tough decisions. Other questions? Yeah.
Holder was found in contempt, but the DOJ won't do anything about it. Was this just going through the motions, or is there further steps that they're going to take?
The question is with the contempt of Congress vote last Thursday against the U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder, was that substantive at all? Since there were 2 votes. The first vote was to refer to the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, that under current law, who's an Obama appointee, and it was a criminal referral. It ain't going anywhere. You're right. But that was a requirement to get to the second, which is substantive. And the second is that we have the ability to go to a federal court with a civil case, requiring the administration to go before a judge and to show, to demonstrate why they took executive privilege on so many documents. And I think they're going to lose. Now they're going to buy time by going to the United States Supreme Court, just like Richard Nixon did with the Watergate tapes. They're going to lose. There are only two bases that you can do executive privilege. One is for national security. When, you know, gun running in New Mexico, where a U.S. border agent was killed, along with a couple hundred Mexican citizens, at least, does not qualify for national security. I mean, this isn't, security in the national security context. The other issue, and I'm trying to remember the name of it, but basically it involves the ability for the administration to have, to conduct private discussions on policy issues, for deliberation on legislative matters. Well, this isn't that either, and so I just don't see where they're going to prevail before a federal court on the civil issue. The criminal issue they will, but on the civil issue they won't. The president will want to buy time, but at some point in time, it's going to be very embarrassing for this administration. I hope after they've left, which is next January, but I don't know if we're going to be there. Hopefully, that for the good of the country, that's going to be the outcome. But at some point, it's going to be very embarrassing. Yeah.
To continue on that, Congressman, does Fast and Furious have any legs that are going to help the Republicans between now and November 6th?
I don't know. When I talked to Darrell Issa, he seemed to think that that it would, because the process of going through court is not as long. He thinks that it could actually go through the court process, certainly through federal district court prior to the election, where that there will be a ruling that it's not executive privilege, that the documents need to be handed over, even though there's appeal to the United States Supreme Court, that at least the decision will be out there. So, the chairman of the committee seems to think that there is an issue there. And, I mean, even, I'm surprised that the Democrats are defending, and the Congress are defending the administration over there. They certainly think about how tough they were over the Bush administration. But the fact is, I mean, and you look at Watergate. I mean, it was a third-rate burglary, but the president was complicit not on the burglary itself, but on the cover-up, and the cover-up what brought down the Nixon presidency. This is a whole lot more than a third-rate burglary. What they did, and there is a cover-up involved. Does it go to the president? I don't know. But I was shocked when after all these months and months and months of the U.S. Justice Department stonewalling on giving the documents to Darrell Issa's committee, the Oversight and Investigations Committee in the House, that all of a sudden, like the day before, a couple of days before, we were scheduled to have a vote on the contempt of Congress, all of a sudden the president puts forward executive privilege, where they never argued that before. I mean, I think that's stunning, just stunning. Any other questions?
Yeah, what is this about where they want the UN to take over certain areas of the ocean?
Yeah, the question is what is this about the UN taking over certain areas of the ocean? And there's a treaty, if I remember the name of it, Law of the Sea Treaty, and that would really delegate a lot of, it would create sort of a separate national, the United States nations as a separate national organization